I know right now a lot of you are probably like, this sounds like a bunch of woo woo, and like, I didn't subscribe for this, like, get on with the sick licks. If that's you, Godspeed, I'll see you in the next one. And the most important thing about this is what I'm going to show you isn't how to do something specific. It's a technique for you coming up with your own ideas and forcing your brain to have to come up with those ideas. I wonder how many times I can flip this thing up in the air and still catch it without impaling myself. You know? So that's the mentality we want to get into. Hey everyone, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Pete Free, and I normally do a lot of covers, solos, just like to practice and show what I'm working on. But this video is a little bit different. And let's face it, a video on how to improvise is to some extent an oxymoron. To me, improvisation is kind of a creative exploration and experimentation in real time. And so, can that be taught? You may question, well, not everyone can do that. Not everyone's creative. Most people who can do that are just born with it. And, that can't be taught or whatever. Personally, I think that's BS. I've seen so many players, and if you're watching this right now, you're likely a guitar player. And I think guitar players in general, as with all musicians or artists of any sort, are probably more creative than the average person. And for sure, I think have a greater appreciation for creativity. Personally, I think it's something that can be developed and you can practice. And, I know right now a lot of you are probably like, this sounds like a bunch of woo woo, and like, I didn't subscribe for this, like, get on with the sick licks. If that's you, Godspeed, I'll see you in the next one. For all the players out there who have kind of been in this position where maybe you've felt like you haven't been able to tap into it, that you don't even really know where to start, I'm going to show you an exercise and hopefully even a way of thinking about that'll help you get over that hump. And the most important thing about this is what I'm going to show you isn't how to do something specific. It's a technique for you coming up with your own ideas and forcing your brain to have to come up with those ideas. This is something that's going to work for beginners and pros alike. In fact, for an experienced player, it may want to make your head pop off and be completely intolerable to you. But that's exactly why it works. But before I get into the actual technique, I want to kind of set the stage with two phrases that I think everyone's heard. And we're going to apply these ideas to the guitar, and that's what this technique does. And the first one, God help me, this phrase, I apologize in advance, but I think you've heard it before, and it's think outside the box. In fact, if you've ever worked in corporate environments, you probably just threw up a little bit in your mouth right now, understandably. I hate myself for even saying it in context, but I want you to realize that what that phrase presupposes is that you're already in a box, okay? And what is the box? It's your constraints. It's it's all of your available options. It's the thing that isn't really working, and you need something above and beyond that. You need to hack your way out of that. Keep that in mind. And the second phrase is necessity is the mother of invention. And that idea being that innovation doesn't happen unless it's forced to happen, okay? So this technique kind of uses those ideas to force your brain to have to think a little bit differently about things. So, before we start the actual first step of this exercise, I want you to think about, on a guitar, what you can do with a particular note. And in this case, I'm using note synonymously with fret, okay? So let's pick the 9th fret on the G string. Okay, what can you do with that note? You can just hit it. You can let it ring for a long time. You can hit it really staccato. You can give it vibrato. You can slide up to it. You can slide down to it. You can bend it. You can bend it one half step, one step, step and a half. However much you want. You can bend it and give it vibrato, more dramatic vibrato. You can tremolo pick it. You can do a rhythm on it. Whatever you can think of. What are some other things you can do? You can use an artificial harmonic or a pinch harmonic. There's a number to pick from there. What else can you do? Well, that's all I can think of right now. Let's start with that idea of what can you do with a single fret on a guitar. And now we'll get into the exercise. Okay, so step 1 of this exercise is to pick a backing track you like on YouTube. Or wherever you have backing tracks, right? Pick something you like, maybe even pick a song that you like that's not just a generic backing track, but a song like I often do where it's like, this song needs a solo here because there's not enough going on and they left a big space in it, right? So pick something like that that you can play over. And I'm going to pick a track here in E minor, and we're going to use I'm going to start off on the E minor pentatonic. Because I think this is most accessible to people. This is the most commonly used pentatonic on the guitar by far, forever. And that's going to be kind of my home. That's going to be the framework, I should say, that I'm going to be starting from. Now, when you start improvising, and this is the crux of the exercise, I'm going to start, for example, on the 4th string with the 14th and the 12th fret. Those 2 notes. And I'm going to start my backing track, and all I can use are those notes. Okay, so we talked about all the things that at this moment I can think of doing with the note. You probably thought of some other things you can do with it. And we're just going to start playing around with that backing track and just seeing how all those things we could possibly do, how we could do it in the context of the song. The second thing we're going to do, well, part of the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stick there. And we're not going to let ourselves use any other notes until our head is going to pop off, okay? And then we're going to do it for another 30 seconds or whatever. And you're going to try and go past what you find tolerable with that, with those notes. And you think you've done everything that you possibly can with them, keep going. Just stay there. Figure out one more thing you can do with it, okay? Then, when you're really at your end and you're like, I hate this guy for ever exposing me to this, add your 2 more notes. In my case, I'm going to add the G string, the 12th and the 14th fret. Again, these are on the pentatonic, but I'm just going to add those 2. So now I have 4 notes to work with on the pentatonic. And I'm going to improvise with only those 4. And I'm going to think about things that I can do on this guitar with those 4 notes. And same process. Do that till you hate yourself. And you're so tired of hearing the backing track and yourself playing and you can't think of anything else. You're bored out of your skull. And then pick 2 more notes. And I think what you're going to see about this time, once you have 6 notes to work with, is it is going to feel incredibly freeing to be able to add additional notes and to express yourself in this new way just by having 2 more notes. And now all those can be together. I mean, you can also, once you get 2 strings involved in notes, you can start to make chords with those notes. See what they sound like. Start experimenting. Do these 2 notes sound good? What if I skip a string? What if I do all these things? You're going to start to play around and just say, but that's your box. You got to stay in that box. And you got to stay there long enough until you really want to break out of it. Okay? And so that's the technique. And there are 1,000 different ways you can do this technique, but you have to constrain yourself first in order to get your brain to really start to have to think about new ways of doing things. And one of the things I like to do when I'm on, sometimes instead of going to a 3rd string, when I'm doing just 2, I'm going to add in the note in between those, I'll add in the 16th fret. I'm sorry, the 13th. So 12, 13, 14 on both the D and the G string, okay? What does that do? Now you have this weird tone. Instead of those, you can do... Like, that's an extremely different sound, okay? And if you're an experienced player who knows about music theory and you're like, well, that's this and that's that, and you're putting it in a box, throw all that stuff away. In fact, if you're more experienced, do something that shouldn't work. Add a note in there, add notes that are not part of any scale. Make up your own scale with a mixture of multiple scales that should sound like crap, but figure out a way to make it sound good. Throw in the note that shouldn't work after some notes that do and see what that adds. Don't think in the sense of music theory. Think about playing around, exploring, like, what does that sound like? What does that do? And you're going to come up with you're going to hit some horrible stuff. You'll be like, that sounds terrible. And then you're going to hit the lick that's like, holy shit, what did I just do there? That sounded amazing. And those are the ones that are going to develop into your style of playing. And those are the ones where you hit the one that to you, that's exactly how a guitar should sound. Those are the ones to pay attention to. And that's all I got for you. That's my my thoughts on how to improvise. With that, I'll link to a George Carlin bit below about a kid playing with a stick and how, what happened to kids ever just going in the backyard and playing with the stick, right? And I like that one because it shows that, if you give a kid a stick, the kid's going to make a gun, the kid's going to make a sword, kid's going to start digging with it. Kid's going to make a baton or something. See how many times they can flip it, whatever. That's the way you have to think about it. Because if someone's just giving you the scales and they're just handing you the plastic gun to play with, all you're going to do is play the gun. You're going to start shooting stuff, right? You're never going to think that, I wonder how many times I can flip this thing up in the air and still catch it without impaling myself. So that's the mentality we want to get into. And, technique is important. There's more than enough videos on the internet on technique and how to play. But I think one of the things that people often miss is that this is an art form. Playing guitar is an art form. It's a way of expressing yourself, which I know is cliche, but it's true. But it's a way of getting out in yourself, saying something in a way that probably you could never say in other ways. And the holy grail of guitar playing is to connect so much with that piece of yourself and the neck, which does take theory and it does take practice and technique and everything else. But the missing piece, I think, for a lot of people that really makes guitar fulfilling is when you're in a certain mood, playing, and trying to express what you feel through this instrument. And what you'll find is by constraining yourself first and expanding, you'll start to realize pretty quickly that there is an infinite amount of possibilities on this fretboard. And that's why guitars are used in all styles of music, and people have done so many things with it. And I hope that you find a way to express yourself as well, because I think it's one of the, I've always loved what guitar can do, particularly, when in times when life is challenging, or, it's always been a respite. And it's been the island of, in good times it's good, in bad times it's good, and, if you connect with the guitar and you fall in love with it, and I've seen some players out there on YouTube that have started in the middle of their life playing, and I've been watching them for, a year or so now, and seeing this progression where what started out as kind of like even a vibrato or something of trying to make something sound like something, you can tell they're starting to get the feel of it, and they're adding a little bit more emotion to it, and they figured out how to make the guitar sound the way they want it to sound. So I know this video is long and I've rambled a lot, but I think everyone has it in them to find that piece of kind of enjoyment and fulfillment that a guitar can bring. And I wish you all the best.